tip this week isn't so much about things you can do to improve your knitting, but ways to make it easier to knit. Now, all of us are pretty familiar with these things, stitch markers. You put them in so that you don't need to think while you knit. And what I have these stitch markers in for is the thumb gusset. But what I'm going to talk about are row markers. And I have these two things in here. These are dental elastics. And what I do is I use them to mark rows, particularly like in a cable pattern like this, where it can take you some time to figure out where row 1 of the cable is. And for this particular pattern, I don't really need them because it's kind of mindless. But if I'm doing a cable pattern where I have long cables and there might be 8 or 9 rows between the cables, it can take me some time to look at that cable to figure out what row I'm on. And what you can do is you can place one of these dental elastics on that row, and it makes it easier. Also, I frequently use them to count rows. When you finish things, seaming is much easier if you have the same number of rows on each side. So I will use them in that way. Now, for anybody that's ever taken a class from me at a conference, you'll know that I always give my students a package of these dental elastics. And by the way, these are latex. So if you have a latex allergy, that won't work. But they do make these that are non-latex. And they come in different sizes. These are 1/4 of an inch, and they're light, and they're good for worsted weight or chunky yarn. I also get them in a smaller size. These are 1/8 of an inch, and you can see that they're tiny. They're perfect for socks. And I can use them when I'm knitting socks. So if you take a class from me, I'll give you a packet of those, and no, they are not a bribe for a good evaluation. I just think they're very useful, and I use them all the time. Now, to use them, and that's why I'm really doing this video, because it occurs to me sometimes that I've used them so much it seems like to me that it's obvious how to use them, but that may not be the case, based on a post I saw in Ravelry and a message I got. So you knit up to the place that you want, or work up to the place where you want to place the dental elastic. You get the elastic and you put it on your right hand needle. Okay, there it is. And then I work the stitch and I pass the dental elastic over, like a PSSO, over that stitch, and then I just continue to knit. And that dental elastic stays in there until I cut it out. And that is one of the disadvantages of using these things, that you do have to remember to cut them out because they stay there forever. And they won't pull free. Now, these are not in any way comparable to lifelines. Lifelines are a way that you mark your rows, but you keep those stitches alive so that if you have to rip out, you can go back. This doesn't serve that purpose. They just stay in there to remind you where you're at. And also, it can help you learn to read your work, because I've placed this one on a cable row. And so as I work this, I know that that is how that cable row is going to look. I really only have to mark one. So that's what there is about dental elastics.